Hello, my name is Chloe, welcome to my channel. Today I'm bringing to you my April wrap up. So I actually had a pretty good month in April and I read 16 books. So I'm going to try and keep each book as short and sweet as possible because otherwise you guys are going to be here forever. So 16 books is great, but sadly it is behind my reading goal for the year. I'm supposed to be averaging 17 books a month in order to meet 200 books this year. I'm a few books behind right now, but I'm trying not to be stressed. It's supposed to be enjoyable. It's not a competition. Let's be calm. So the books I read this month, I had one book I didn't rate, 4 3-star books, 8 4-star books, 2 4.5-star books, and 1 5-star book. So I had no particularly bad books. I did have a 50-50 split on one thing this month. I read 8 physical books and 8 audiobooks. So if you're unaware, April is the month that I started my new job and it involves a much longer day, a longer commute. So I was able to listen to quite a lot of audio. In total, I read 6,211 pages, which meant an average page count per day of 204 and an average number of pages per book at 388. So the books are quite long. It meant my average rating for the month came out at a 3.6 stars, which it feels like it should be higher, but 3.6 is okay. It's pretty good for me. So I will start from the bottom and work my way up to the top, starting with the book I didn't rate. And that is Unpregnant by Jenny Hendricks and Ted Kaplan. I don't want to sit on this one for too much longer. I did give more of my thoughts in my vlog when I was reading this, but basically this is about a girl called Ronnie who finds herself pregnant and in a situation to make a decision about what she's gonna do with her future, with the baby. And she ends up going on a road trip with her ex-best friend Bailey to a Planned Parenthood clinic 900 miles away. The reason I didn't rate this book is I physically could not separate it from my own personal feelings and experiences. So I didn't feel like it was fair to give you guys a numbered rating on what I thought of this story when the topic is just such a talked about, debated. I didn't want to weigh in. So I'm here to talk about books and how much I enjoy reading books. So this one felt a little bit too hard to give a personal opinion while staying fair in my rating. So I've given it no rating so that I don't sway anything either way. I read it, I listened to the audio. It was a lovely audiobook, but I do not need to hold on to this one. Next up, I listened to this audiobook on the way to drive to see Chelsea because she's on completely the other side of the country. So I managed to read the entirety of Solitaire by Alice Oseman, which, as you can tell by the ranking in this video, I gave 3 stars. So this is about Tori, who is the sister of Charlie from Nick and Charlie. And I started with the graphic novels and I've worked my way back to this book. So this follows Tori, who, do you know what? I can't actually remember that much about it and I think that's kind of the problem. So I said when I finished this book that there was nothing particularly wrong with it. I just didn't care about the storyline that much. And I stand by it because if you told me to give a 100-word summary of what happened in this book, I don't think I could. But it was perfectly pleasant. Let's move on at perfectly pleasant. Next up we have Roses of May by Dr. Hutchison, which is another audiobook I listened to. And this is the sequel of The Butterfly Garden, which I read last year and gave 5 stars. I did enjoy this book, but unfortunately it wasn't the same level of enjoyment as The Butterfly Garden. So I did enjoy the story. This is about a serial killer who is killing girls and then surrounding them with flowers. And also a girl who has, without spoiling anything, has something to do with one of the butterflies from the butterfly garden, and she is receiving flowers that match up to the ones the serial killer is leaving with the bodies. She has formed a relationship with one of the FBI agents and it is about her dealing with grief, her building this like friendship relationship and also being the next potential victim of this serial killer. I did like the story and I feel like it could have been a higher rating, but my issue was it didn't feel like it had to be a sequel to The Butterfly Garden. I don't know whether I felt like that series needed a sequel or it just got one because I really liked it. I felt like where it ended with that book was perfectly acceptable and we didn't really need any more. So I liked this story on its own. I didn't like the links to book 1, if that makes sense. Next up, we have Words on Bathroom Walls by Julia Walton. And this is, again, a 3-star, but this is a book about Adam, I think his name is Adam, who has schizophrenia, and he has joined a new school after being started on a clinical trial for a new drug. I didn't dislike this in any sense of the word. I definitely didn't. But so 3 stars for me is a good rating. I always say that. But it just didn't really have the impact on me that I potentially thought it could. Oh yeah, it is Adam. So he's seeing a lot of hallucinations which become key characters in the book. His hallucinations include a cast of characters that range from the good, beautiful Rebecca, to the bad, angry mob boss, to just the plain weird, polite naked guy. Luckily, an experimental drug promises to help him hide his illness from the world. And it really is about him growing up as a teenager, kind of developing new relationships, but also dealing with the schizophrenia. So it was a very interesting book and I would recommend it. It just didn't knock my socks off like I thought it would. And the final 3-star is Twisted Love by Anna Huang. And I have explained this in my vlog. I will explain it again. This could be a 5-star book. I just need to read it again, because I loved the story in this. This is about Alex, who is the devil blessed with the face of an angel and cursed with a past he can't escape. But we have Ava, who her older brother is going away to do this project. It's like a Habitat for Humanity kind of thing. And he makes his friend, Alex, promise to watch over Ava while he's gone. And Alex is the bad boy, Ava's the good girl. We see what's going to happen here. The story from me got 5 stars, but I listened to the audiobook and it made me feel physically sick in places. So for that reason, the audiobook in my brain has 1 star. The book itself has 5 stars. So my rating for this wrap up is a 3-star. I would love to reread this at some point, read it physically, and I'm sure it will come out with a 5-star rating. But when you have a narrator you dislike whispering in a raspy voice through the exciting scenes, no. Right, I want to speed this up because we're on 9 minutes already and I've only talked about 5 books. So 4-star ratings. The first one I want to talk about is What the World Doesn't See by Mel Darbin. I really enjoyed this book. So I was sent this review and it is about a girl and her younger brother who has unnamed, according to the book, learning difficulties. They've recently lost their dad and their mom is struggling to deal with it. So one day the mom has just disappeared and left the girl and her brother with their auntie. The auntie decides it's a little bit too much for her to take care of both the kids, so she sends the young guy to a foster home that is more equipped to deal with his needs. The sister doesn't really like this idea, so she takes it upon herself to kidnap her brother and reunite him with their mother. It was very emotionally moving, and the author's note as well is the one thing that really just like kicked me in the face. It was so emotional. I would definitely recommend this book. It wasn't perfect to me, just for different narrative styles, different things I'd like to see, I guess, and more punching in the face of my emotions. But I would recommend it, and I will definitely be on the lookout for anything else this author writes. Next up we have Ifutao by Greg Olson, which is a true crime audiobook I listened to. This book was pretty distressing to read. The subtitle of it is A True Story of Murder, Family Secrets, and the Unbreakable Bond of Sisterhood. And this is about mainly 3 sisters, Nikki, Sam, and Tori, who years ago, their mother Shelley subjected them to unimaginable abuse, torture, degradation. I'm just throwing out all the words. It was a horrible upbringing, and this book reflects on what they had to deal with and how they are coming to terms with that in their life. I gave it 4 stars because it was very well told, in my opinion. It was such a distressing story, but I think the way it was handled and communicated was really good, and easily one of the most digestible audiobooks for true crime I have listened to. Sometimes you go completely off and you have no idea what's going on, but I did fully follow this story, and it felt like I was listening to a podcast. I really enjoyed it. Well, enjoyed is a weird word, but I had a good time with it. No. It was good. Next up, we have Eliza and Her Monsters by Francesca Zappia, which I listened to on the way back from visiting Chelsea. This is a book about Eliza Merck, who in normal real life is shy, doesn't have many friends, and is just a little bit weird. But online, she is known as Lady Constellation, and she is the creator of this webcomic called Monstrous Sea. And then this guy comes along who is the biggest fan fiction writer for Monstrous Sea, and his name is Wallace, and he transfers to her school. And when she realizes that Wallace from her school is the fan fiction writer from online, she doesn't know whether to tell him or not that she is Lady Constellation. This was such a fun look at kind of content creation mixing with real life. Obviously this was on such like an amazing scale, but it really did just, for me, highlight how you talk to people about what you do online. I don't know. I really did like this. 4 stars. And I am going to keep it because one day I'd like to reread it and physically look at all of the pictures and things inside, because I did listen to the audiobook this time. But 4 stars, would recommend. Next up, we have Daylighters by Rachel Kane, still in the 4-star territory. This is the 15th and final book in the Morganville Vampire series, and unfortunately I gave it 4 stars, not 5, like the rest of the series. I did enjoy this book. Obviously 4 stars is an amazing rating, but it was not 5-star feelings for me. I can't tell you too much about this with it being the 15th book in the series, but let's just say the things in here probably, by the standards of the rest of the series, should have been spread across 3 books. The ending just didn't have the oomph that I wanted it to. I wanted it to really like pack a punch, and it didn't. But I am excited to go in and read the short stories from this series. I just wanted more from the ending. So unfortunately, it wasn't the best of the series. This, just as a brief overview, Morganville follows Claire, who is a very intelligent teenager, and she is sent to Texas Prairie University before it is her time to go to college because she's that clever. But her parents don't want to release her into the big city. So they send her to the small town of Morganville, which actually turns out to be run by vampires. It's a great series. I do love it. And 4 stars is still amazing. Book 15 wasn't 5 stars. Next up, a really unexpected 4-star read was The Girls I've Been by Tess Sharp. I really enjoyed this. So this is about Nora, who has been brought up by a con artist mother, and she has been many girls throughout her life. She has adapted to new names, new personalities to help her mom win long cons and con men out of their money by integrating with their lives. And now we're following Nora. Her mother is in prison, and she is caught up in a bank robbery with her ex-boyfriend and her current girlfriend. The current girlfriend does not know who she is and what's been happening in her life, but the ex-boyfriend does. So she's coming to a really high-stress situation where she has to get them out alive, while also breaking the news to her girlfriend and kind of salvaging any relationship she can with the ex-boyfriend. I really enjoyed this. This was a YA contemporary with dark elements to me, and that is like my favourite thing in a book. So, unexpected gem in this book. Next up, we have Mindhunter by John Douglas and Mark Olshaker, which I gave 4 stars. This was the Chloe's Crime Scene Corner pick for the month, so I'm so happy I enjoyed one of these books more than I had been in previous months. I did end up reading the audiobook, so I'm not sure what my experience would have been if I read it physically, but I just found this absolutely fascinating. So maybe I would love one day to come back and, you know, really get into it and annotate and really put my thoughts down. But John Douglas was the man who created the idea of criminal profiling, and it's just a look really at how he dealt with many cases and came up with, oh, the suspect will have a stammer, he will be 35 to 40, he'll be ex-army, when he would just pull facts out of nowhere about what this criminal would be like, and how he was right. So I know that's a really broad explanation of what this book is about. He also discusses cases like Jeffrey Dahmer, Charles Manson, Ted Bundy, and gives his take on some of the cases, and I just found it fascinating. So 4 stars. Next up, we have Looking Glass Sound by Katrina Ward, which was a book I was on the tandem read-along tour for, and again, 4 stars. This is a weird book. It's quite dark and it's quite weird. So if I can just refresh myself on their names, because I never remember the names. There is a young boy called Wilder who his dad's uncle passes away, and he has a little house out on a place called Whistler Bay where the stones make whistling noises in the wind. Very atmospheric, very creepy. Wilder goes there on a little vacation and meets two people whose names I do not remember, but he makes two friends down there, and they hang out for the summer, they have arguments, they have romances, blah de blah de blah. But then dead bodies are found, and there is a man called the Whisper Man who is sneaking into houses and taking pictures over children with knives, all very creepy. This book actually, as well as following that, follows Wilder wanting to write the story of what happened to him and somebody beating him to it. It was a very, very interesting take on this kind of story. It wasn't just, you know, start, middle, end. We had start, middle, end, refresh once, refresh twice, refresh 3 times, and very interesting. Would recommend this one. I'm excited to read more of her work. And the last 4-star book, this is number 8, we had You'll Miss Me When I'm Gone by Rachel Lynn Solomon. This is the book I finished most recently, so hopefully I should have the more concise review. This is a book following Adina and Tova, who are 2 twins. Their mother has Huntington's disease, and they are taking the test at 18 years old to find out if they also have the disease for Huntington's. I do think the blurb gives a little bit away. There is some very devastating news in the test for Huntington's, and they all need to adjust to knowing that something is going to happen to them eventually, and they don't know when it's going to happen. Huntington's disease is a horrific, disgusting disease, and I am personally very sad to say I knew somebody with Huntington's, and some people who are considering taking the test. So it was a really emotional read for me. Saying that, I gave it 4 stars because I didn't get as emotional as I wanted to. This has all of the Huntington's elements I discussed, but also just 2 teenage girls having college acceptances and romances and friendship dramas. So it was really moving. I'm so glad I finally read one of this author's books, but didn't quite, again, why do I keep wanting to be punched in the face by books? But it wasn't quite as devastating as I thought it might be to me. Okay, 4.5 stars, and then the 1 5-star. The first 4.5-star book is The Mysterious Case of the Alps and Angels by Janice Hallett. I buddy read this one with Victoria this month, and I was so scared to read it. I love The Appeal, which is Janice's first book, but I detested The Twyford Code, which is book number 2. Book number 3, though, knocked it out of the park, and I really enjoyed it. This is about our author, Amanda, who is writing a book on the case of the Alps and Angels, which was a cult who believed angels were walking the earth. There was a mass suicide situation. God, you can tell I listen to loads of true crime. I'm like, yeah, mass suicide. There was a mass suicide situation, ritual sacrifice looking, and the details of what actually happened have never been released. So Amanda takes it upon herself to write this book and do some digging into what really happened and where the baby of the Alps and Angels is. So there was a baby involved in the sacrifice. It would now be 18, and they want to release the book and find the baby. This book is really, really good. The reading experience for me is a complete 5 stars. We're talking transcripts, there are emails, there are WhatsApp chats with emojis. There is some very interesting ways that this book is written that really, really grabs you. So the reading experience is just fantastic. The big reveal on what was happening was less so. So I did chip away 1/2 star for it, but I would really, really recommend this book, and it's a toss-up whether I prefer this one or The Appeal. They're both very good. The most unexpected 4.5 star rating this month is The Duke and I by Julia Quinn. I had no intention of picking this book up, I won't lie. Well, picking it up this month. I obviously owned the book, so I wanted to pick it up. This is the first book in the Bridgerton series. I had never watched Bridgerton. I have now devoured season 1. And this follows, why am I reading it? I know what it follows. This is following Daphne Bridgerton, who is out in society and looking for a husband. She doesn't really have the best suitors, and Simon Bassett, the Duke of Hastings, comes along and they devise a ruse so that the mothers of the town will stop trying to marry Simon off to their daughters, and that Daphne has more desirable suitors turning up and asking for her hand in marriage. But obviously when such a ruse exists, feelings start moving around, and oh my god, I really like this book. So there is something problematic that happens in this book, and whether it is not dealt with as much as it can is for you to decide, but it is quite bad. Saying that, whatever it means for me as a person, I did really enjoy this book. I don't think the one event completely overshadowed everything. I didn't realise historical, like, Regency romance is my thing, but I think I found my unexpected thing, and I'm very happy about it. And finally, my 5-star read for this month. I couldn't not give this book 5 stars. It's City of Heavenly Fire by Cassandra Clare. So, I have been rereading Cassandra Clare's books up to this month, and I had never ever carried on and finished the Mortal Instruments series. This is a whopper. It's an absolute whopper. I went through, I annotated it, I highlighted it. You've got my feelings scribbled in, I'm trying to find a good one now. You've got my feelings scribbled in every margin, and I just loved it. So I can't really tell you what this book is about, being the 6th book in however many worlds that Cassandra Clare now has. But the Shadow Hunters are a group of human angel combinations who are tasked with ridding the human world of demons and protecting the mundanes. We've got Clary, we've got Jace, we've got Simon, we've got Magnus, we've got Alec, we've got Isabel. All these people that I have formed such a big relationship with, and getting to the end of the 6th and final book in this series was just such a mood. And I had to give it 5 stars. I can't not. Would I recommend anyone get into this series now? Maybe not. But I've been reading them for years. I've always put off finishing it. I've now done it. 5 stars. Fantastic. So there we have it. There are the 16 books I read this month. I have been filming for so long my camera's cut me off once, so I've definitely talked more than I wanted. But if you have anything to say about any of these books, please do chat to me down in the comments. I would love to discuss them more. But for now, I'm going to sign off. Thank you so much for watching. I really do hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.